What's up, everybody? Nick Savage, Cade hanging out with me. David took off. He's got a meeting with Richard Zane or something like that. So I'm taking care of the rewind today. It was a fun show. Actually, this was the final countdown Friday. We thought it was last week, but hey, we had a bonus one. So we'll just jump right into it. We had the Go Hour with OB and Nuno. They went through the Pick 6 games, championship games this weekend. So we ran through that. Billy Liucci shared some nuggets, some little tidbits here and there about the portal offensive coordinator, all the stuff we're worried about as Aggies. Had Caroline Fenton in for one last time, just talk about the A&M LSU game and recap that a little bit, talked a little SEC championship as well. And we had the final countdown with Steve and Seth McKinney. Always a good time with them in studio. So here it is. It's TexAgs Rewind. All right, ACC championship game, number 9 Clemson going up against number 23 North Carolina. 7 o'clock kickoff on ABC. Clemson is the 7.5-point favorite in that one.
I'm taking North Carolina. I'm going to take North Carolina in the points. I think North Carolina can score. Mm-hmm. I think playing Clemson in the ACC championship game means more to North Carolina. I'm guessing on this than
based on what happened.
The ACC championship for Clemson that thought they could be in the playoff and got themselves knocked out, and then they've had so much success. I wonder how much does an ACC championship mean to them anymore? And let's face it, that's not a vintage Clemson team, offensively or defensively. I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson wins, but I'll take North Carolina to cover. If they had a kicker, I might take them to win.
Wow, this is a tough one for me because I think Clemson's going to win, but I'm kind of like you. I could see it closer than that. That's it. I'm going Clemson. I'm going all opposites.
Well, based on the way I've done, it would seem like a sound reasoning on your part.
About a month ago, I think you were in second place.
I've had a terrible, like I said, I faded November like Kevin Sumlin.
You have. All right, let's continue on.
All right, we got the Big Ten championship. Purdue, who's 8-4, sneaking in there, going up against the number 2 Michigan Wolverines, who are undefeated. 7 o'clock kickoff. That's on Fox, and Michigan is the 16.5-point favorite.
Big number for a team that should be in the playoffs without their best player.
Yeah, and yet they were without their best player and wore out Ohio State on the road. I'm taking Michigan. Purdue backed their way in out of a really bad West Division, and I think Michigan just has to see what's at stake here. And, they can – I guess they can win and still get in, but, they're on a roll. I'm going to take Michigan to win in a blowout.
Michigan to win in a blowout as well. We're agreeing there. I couldn't go that opposite day with you.
I'm like George Costanza, just do the opposite of what I think, and I'd probably come out all right.
Yep. All right, let's do the last one.
And finally, we got the SEC championship game. Number 14 LSU, who are 9-3, going up against the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs, undefeated, obviously. 3 o'clock kickoff in Atlanta, I believe, and that's that's on CBS. Georgia is the 17.5-point favorite.
Well, I'm predicting 3 straight losses for LSU, even though I don't know who they're playing in the bowl game. As of today, I think it just feels right to say it out loud, and it doesn't take away from the victory over LSU for A&M if they lose 3 straight. I think A&M broke their spirits, and not only that's going to happen, I think Georgia's going to take it to them big time, and then they're not going to feel as good in the offseason, while our 5-7 season, which is terrible overall, will have a little pep in our step. That's what I'm going with.
I have taken Georgia all year and very often with giving a lot of points, and they haven't let me down yet. So I'm going to take Georgia.
Georgia it is. And
I just don't see LSU scoring a lot against Georgia, and especially if Jaden Daniels is having any lingering effects. I'm heard he's going to play.
Yeah.
But if he's not at 100% against that defense, it could be trouble.
A&M hit him hard last week. Georgia will too.
Was that Tariq Chappelle that made that tackle?
I think it is. I think it's Chappelle.
That sidelining for just a little while?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think as early as next weekend we're going to have transfer portal people come in. I mean, they're hitting that pretty hard. And you look at all this attrition, and you're seeing names like, and Blake Smith and Tumiche, who might have started next year, but also at a position where the A&M's got a ton of depth and a ton of young players. but Blake Smith, Tumisha, then you look at, and it's guys like Brian George, and you'll see more like that Chase, I say our own Chase Lang. He does stacked interviews, but I think eventually I would love to see Chase in here doing work with TexAgs. Yeah. It's something he and I have talked about. So these guys, much like Caleb Chapman last year because of injury, these are guys that didn't start this year for whatever reason, and they're going on in search of a better playing time opportunity. And people want to make a big deal around the country, there goes the exodus and da-da-da. So far, that hasn't been the case at all. And that doesn't mean that any one of those individual players couldn't have or wouldn't have helped this team next year. So what you're losing with all these transfers, or you haven't lost. And look, I don't mean to make people nervous, and I don't have a specific player. Outside of the guys that are suspended indefinitely, I keep mentioning the one that I think is most likely to return, and that's not even guaranteed is Anthony Lucas. That could be, that's going to ultimately, that'll add to the number that I think that people try to say, oh, look at this, but the reality is I think that was not by, in some instances, that's not going to be by their own choice. It's going to be by their own actions.
Right.
As far as the guys leaving so far, they've been depth guys. Maybe a future starter or two in there.
Yeah.
There's no question Tumisha could have started. It's not like A&M was excited about him leaving. He's a player.
Yep.
But you got players at that position. You got real players as well. None of the exits have been surprising yet, and none of them have been a gut shot. Now, out of a whole roster of guys, whether you're Texas A&M, whether you're Texas, whether you're LSU, Tennessee, Alabama, every program in college football this year is going to lose a guy or two that they don't want to lose, that you're not expecting to lose. And it's going to happen during Christmas break when these kids go home and they're going to get bombarded, and they're going to get – A&M's got guys right now that schools like Georgia and some of these big schools are promising. Oregon, they're promising them a lot in the way of NIL money that are not in the portal yet. They're promising them all kinds of deals and stuff, but it's fake. It's like funny money, and there's not contracts signed by these other schools. It can't go that way. So basically, what's happening is you're asking guys to just, hey, we got an NIL for you. Go in the portal,
right? And
if there are numbers attached, they can make up whatever number they want. Once you're in the portal, it's go time. So A&M, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, with all their current players, have to sit there and remind these kids, current guys can get real deals. You could sign a deal today if you're a current player somewhere. Those other schools can't do that. So they can make a promise of $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, $1 billion, go full Dr. Evil on them and do whatever they want. If they're going to play their best game, it would be Saturday. And not to say they're going to do it against Georgia, but if they bring their best game, if this A&M game was a wake-up call and they say, guys, we got one more shot at this, go in. How in the perfect world scenario does LSU go about winning a football game against Georgia and shaking up college football?
Everything is going to have to go their way. They're going to have to play a perfect special teams game, which we haven't seen them do all season long. They're going to have to force turnovers, and they're going to have to capitalize off of them. I've noticed whenever LSU gets down early in a game and then comes back to win, which has happened way too many times so far this season, they start to get a turnaround whenever they get big defensive plays. We saw it against Florida State. LSU's offense couldn't get anything moving all game long. Florida State fumbles at the goal line. LSU recovers. LSU marches down for a touchdown in a minute. We saw it against Mississippi State. LSU's offense couldn't get anything going in the first half. Mississippi State fumbles the kickoff. LSU recovers. LSU outscores Mississippi State 21-0. Saw it against Auburn, down 17-0, scoop and score. And then Auburn didn't score a single point after that. So we've seen this trend with LSU all season long. When they get down early, the way they get back into games is big defensive plays turnovers that they're able to capitalize off of. So that's what they're going to have to do, is get at least one turnover and score off of that. And I think Jaden Daniels is going to have to play the best game of his career, because the past 2 years, the only team that's been able to beat Georgia is Alabama, and they did it by Bryce Young throwing 400 plus yards. I don't know if Jaden Daniels can do that. I don't know if he can throw for 400 plus yards a game, but LSU is not going to be able to beat Georgia simply by running the ball, because that's going to be the number one thing that Georgia's defense comes for, is stopping the run. So they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to force turnovers. They're going to have to capitalize off of them. They've got to play a clean game, play a clean special teams game. Don't commit any penalties. Everything's going to have to go right for LSU to beat Georgia.
Yeah, I think, Nuno, defensively, LSU is going to have to be magnificent.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do something that causes problems for Stetson Bennett. It's got to start, like, Georgia's going to have to struggle to get things going, Bowers, that passing game, because of the pressure up front. So it's Harold Perkins, it's Ali Gay, it's Ojulari, like those guys.
Ojulari.
Yeah, those guys are going to have to, like, have out-of-body experience type game. And all three of them are capable of it as pass rushers. They're going to have to really get after Stetson Bennett in a way that they were unable to get after Connor Wigman here at Kyle Field. The other part of it, too, is Caroline, you talk about the yards by Jaden Daniels. I don't think he can do that. I'm watching that LSU game, and I'm going, for some reason, I don't care that Boutte and Neighbors and these guys are at wide receiver, because they don't have a guy that's going to get them to him. It didn't scare me at all. What would scare me is if Jaden Daniels starts running, and then the eyes have to be on him, and all of a sudden he's able to hit some big plays over the top. To me, you kind of hit on it with those yards, but they're not, in my opinion, they don't come conventionally from Jaden Daniels. They come because he's having some early success running, and it changes the whole dynamic of that game.
Carolina.
And that also depends on Jaden Daniels' health, because the ankle, I don't think the ankle's 100%.
True.
So if the ankle's not 100%, if he's good enough to go, then great. But if he's a statue in the pocket, LSU's not going to have an easy day offensively.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Caroline, for the first time, and I told Billy this, I listened to some LSU commentary after the A&M win just to see what was out there.
I hope you didn't listen to T-Bob. And
I did.
That was great.
That was good.
T-Bob.
It was good. It was good.
It's a great show.
I mean, Moscona thinks so lowly of A&M. It's just so fun to watch it. You just watch A&M beat them, 3 out of 5.
Maybe the guy calling the plays has something, not calling the plays in the huddle has something to do with it. Maybe that's Connor's deal. He's like, let's go, let's speed it up. And then he delivers the play, and he gets out there and makes a decision and goes with it.
Well, I can tell you the one thing that game did was just breathe life to me back into the fan
Classic
base.
Aggie.
Back into the locker room. It just felt like so many things turned after that victory, because I mean, even me personally, I had such a negative feeling about the season, the team, the direction. And that one game just kind of like breathed new life back into everybody.
Did. That one game was what I thought the second half of the season was going to do.
Yeah.
I really did. I thought starting with South Carolina, and Nuno, you know this, and y'all know this in conversations we've had on and off air, I was worried about the first half of the season. Now, I didn't know Miami was going to stink that bad, and I didn't know Arkansas was going to stink that bad. If I knew that, I would have circled Mississippi State and said, okay, at worst, they'll be 4-2 through 6 games, but if they can beat Mississippi State, they got a real chance to be a playoff contender, because I thought that second half of the year. And then even after Bama, because the offense showed signs of life, and South Carolina was, and even after watching the game, they still were very beatable. Even after that, I thought that schedule in that second half set up nicely. And you look at the way the season went, and you take out that Florida game when they had half a team, lose by 3 to Auburn, lose by 3 to Ole Miss, lose by 6 to South Carolina. It was attainable. What happened then were the injuries just ravaged it. And the losses, I think the morale was down and they were beat up. It was brutal.
Yep.
But in one game, they did what I hoped that 6 games could do. And I didn't think just one game could do that.
I'll tell you what, it's
not just y'all.
It's a weird
needed
feeling.
it.
I mean, it did it. It did it for me. I'm very hopeful for next year. And then let's just say that we're able to hold on to some of these upperclassmen, the ones that are draft eligible, not transfer. I'm talking about going to the draft. We can hold on to some of them. I mean, we have realistic. Let's just pretend. All right, I'm not saying it's going to happen at all. A-Chain comes back.
Oh God, well, that's the whole.
Anais. Think of that.
Well,
Think about what that team would do.
To me, this is where
I'm not expecting either.
I know.
And
I'm
not,
but
A-Chain's in play.
About.
By the way, A-Chain is in play.
Well, that's where the NIL needs to come into play.
Exactly.
We have all this NIL money supposedly. This is where if you want to make NIL really work for
recruits,
you go bring back guys
above,
like that,
brother.
and you spend the money on them.
I'd pay that money for A-Chain.
Not 18-year-olds. You spend it on the returning guys.
Yeah.
To actually make a difference next year.
Yeah,
it's a 1-year investment, guys. To go for the championship.
It's like the Yankees trading midseason for some guy, but we win like the Astros versus the Yankees always losing.
Yeah.
So,
no,
lately.
I mean, it is. It's like when the Astros signed Randy Johnson.
There you go.
All right, y'all, we'll keep it nice and sweet here at the end. You go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment. Anything else, Cade? What else do you do? I don't know.
Said it all.
Yeah, said it all. Have a good weekend, y'all.